You're ready?
Well, we're recording.
Okay, I'm happy that we're recording.
Alan, we met.
We do. Would you say that this is a good color for me?
It's a nice color. You look nice in that color.
Well, it's my skin, so yeah.
You're really excited about that one, aren't you?
I think we got that one off. Welcome to Split the Difference. The podcast. I'm Alan.
I'm Whitney.
We are up to episode 0042.
Is that right?
How do you feel about that?
I actually don't know if that's right.
Absolutely. I keep the count right here.
I'm checking. Oh, okay. Well, fine. I guess
I'm just looking
right.
at the count right here.
I have a question for you. Is it still a podcast if it's on video now?
Absolutely. 100%.
How? Like, why?
Well, we're not live. I mean, we're live in this moment, but
Yeah.
It's not going to be live to the folks watching on blur.tv. Thank you for watching there.
Hey, guys.
And, you know, there's also going to be an audio version at some point for those listening and not being able to see our charming faces and our matching.
So sad for them.
Well, they're sad people. I love my fans. You have many more fans, but, you know, sad people nonetheless.
I don't think that's true.
I just have a quick, just non sequitur.
Please.
Lake Michigan. Like, have you seen a picture of, have you seen an overhead of Lake Michigan, like over the Great Lakes all together?
No. Why would I see that? Are you going to pull something up?
No. Imagine Lake Michigan.
Okay.
It looks like a flaccid penis. And I think
it really does. That was immediately my thought when you said picture Lake Michigan. I was like, it kind of like shaped like a penis.
Okay. I'm glad. I didn't know if it was just me. I saw a picture of the Great Lakes earlier.
No, it definitely, yeah. That's
right.
real.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm glad you didn't push back on that one. I thought.
Can I tell you something else though? I'm a Midwesterner. I feel like I should know what all of the shapes are and to be able to compare them to other bodily parts. I can't picture any other Great Lake but Michigan.
Do you think there's like some Freud? Would Freud say, like, absolutely not surprised you wouldn't be able to picture the Great?
Well, I think Freud can suck a dick. So I don't care. I don't care what Freud has to say. Freud was, and this is, go ahead, hot take right here. Ooh, hot mic. Sorry, that was a little spicy. Freud, I think, working out a lot of his issues with his work. So I think we learn more about Freud when we read his work than we learn about ourselves.
Whitney, I want you to rank 5 things.
Rank out.
I want you to rank the Great Lakes based on your thought to be the greatest and then the crappiest of the Great Lakes.
I mean,
Superior,
so I definitely know all the... Yeah, no, keep going, because I definitely know all the lakes, but I'm sure the people watching don't know them all.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I will...
Not for me, but...
Definitely not for you, but for those that happen to be viewing...
Right. Definitely not me.
Superior, flaccid penis, may need to go talk to someone about the shape.
You know what else it kind of looks like? It looks like a Muppet nose, like Bert.
Oh, wow.
You know, just a little bit.
Huron is a little bit like a little porpoise here. A little porpoise.
I was definitely thinking like eagle head and then a little beak.
I can see that.
Kind of a thing happening. I get it.
Ontario, happy to be here.
That's a clavicle right there. Like Ontario and Erie, just the two of them, just a pair of clavicles. And Lake Superior looks like a cirrhotic liver. So figured it out.
Incredibly well done. Whitney, rank these lakes.
Well, Lake Michigan is number 1. Okay. I'm gonna go Huron is number 2 because I live close to Huron Street. I guess I live close to all these streets. Because, well, no, not Michigan. But you know, I live in that area, the north to south. You know what I'm talking about? Where all the...
No one knows what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. People who are not from Chicago, there is a section of the city where it goes, I think it goes Huron, Erie, Ontario. But then Superior doesn't actually show up in the city. Superior shows up in Oak Park, where I was raised. So I don't know, Superior. I'm going to put Superior at the bottom because arrogant much?
Oh.
Rude. I said Huron second. I'm going to go Ontario third because I think that's a nice place to put something Canadian. And then Erie can be number 4 because there's no other place to put it.
So here's my thing about the lakes.
This is going to be really ridiculous, isn't it?
Superior's number 1. I mean, look at the name. I mean, if the name is really going to tell you all that you need to know, it's also a great size for a lake. I mean, I love Lake Superior. I'm going to tell you, Ontario, sneaky number 2. I mean, just look.
Why is it number 2?
I'm just giving you the rankings. It's a
Okay, but why?
number 2. I like that you're going a bit east, Caps. I like that Superior to the west and above. I like Ontario.
This is so boring, Alan. People are skipping past everything you're saying.
Let them skip. They don't know where they end up. Number 3 is Erie. I mean, because that's fine. Here's what it comes down to.
It looks to be the shallowest of the lakes.
Oh, look at that! You notice that?
Right? Can I just walk all the way out in the middle? What is this, Indiana? Can I basically just walk straight to Montreal?
I don't know if that's how that works. I don't think that may be Indiana right there. Here's my problem with like Huron and then Michigan. And they're tied for the
you're
bottom.
Putting your own lake at the bottom?
Okay, first of all, it's not Lake Illinois, it's Lake Michigan. That's their problem, not mine. Number 2, and more importantly, these are connected bodies of water, and I've never liked it. It is BS. These other lakes, independent. This connected body of water, what is it? What is it?
Is this an anti-socialism rant?
Whoa.
Is that what's going on?
I'm just telling you, what is it? The Strait of Mackinac or whatever that's connecting these two? That's one body. It should be one lake. There should be 4 Great Lakes, not 5. And so for that, those 2 are at the bottom together. Not a fan.
All right. Well, Alan, I have a ranker for you.
Wow, the tables have turned.
So this came up because, I don't know, one of us said something in the pre-show meeting that got me thinking about this. So I want you to rank these 5 low-key superpowers.
Low-key superpowers. I have a pen here. I'm ready to go.
Are you ready? The first is the power to always get the bartender's attention. You don't have to wait. You don't have to do one of these. You don't have to do that.
Okay, I like
Bartender locks eyes with you as soon as you want to drink. All right? You don't drink alcohol, but
I still want drinks.
Shirley temperature. Shirley temperature.
Don't call me Shirley.
Okay. Number 2 is a spidey sense for the meter maid. So you always know when the meter maid is coming. None of this like, I got to look out. I got to check my app. All right. I should say meter maid, but also the maids of street cleaning, the street cleaning maids, the people who give you tickets for all the things about where you're parked.
Law enforcement.
So meter maid. No, it's not law enforcement. It's a other person. They wear a reflector vest. They still have the blue one in Chicago. Law. Okay. I'm pretty sure those people aren't deputized. Number 3 is Tetris brain. So you always know like how to fit things in perfectly. So if you're moving, you know how to fit everything in the box. You know how to fit everything in the fridge. Tetris brain.
Right now that's dead last.
Semi-functional gills, which just means you get an extra 5 minutes of breathing underwater.
Semi-functional 5 minutes? Like holy. Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm just saying you're not aquatic. You're not fucking Kevin Costner in that movie where he drinks his own pee. Also, I do have to say, do you remember the child in that movie? Tina Majorino? What happened to her? What happened to her?
Save that name for a little celebrity game. I mean, just save that name.
Oh, God, yeah. Like, where is she right now? The last is that you can attack anyone by giving them heartburn.
Oh.
Alan, Rank these low-key superpowers.
All right. This is an excellent question. I'm going to go from the thing I want,
The least.
the bottom up.
Okay. Yeah.
Lowest
you know
is
what? That's a
Tetris
more
brain.
dramatic way to do it. I'm going to do the ranker that way from here on out.
Tetris brain. Listen, I think it's a great skill,
Okay.
but I don't think I'm going to be using it very often. And it's not going to bring me as much joy as I'd like. So I'm going to go Tetris brain is 5.
All right.
I'm going to go for, this is going to be risky. I think it's going to surprise you a little bit as well.
Okay.
I'm going to go for the meter maid, I would say law enforcement at 4. That's a sneaky one. Because that was almost as high as 2.
But you do have a car.
I do have a car. But I think I'm really good at keeping track of like time and where I should be. I don't do a lot of risking it.
That's
so
fair.
this power would allow me to risk a little bit more, but I'm naturally not as risky.
That's
So
fair.
I'm going to slot that as 4.
Well, that's actually because I got a ticket today for street cleaning, and it was one of those like tie-up signs. And like I didn't realize this. They literally have to only be out for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So if you're like me and you work from home, I mean, I worked from home before the pandemic, but like all of us are working from home in a certain capacity, right? And
Whitney, the
like,
common person.
what the fuck am I doing? My car's just sitting there. I'm walking the dog. I'm not paying attention to the car. Like, when am I leaving the house? Anyway, continue.
That blows.
$60 to the city.
Ooh. Oh, Lori. Catching up. I'm going to go with, and this is, I think, another upset. I'm going to go with getting the bartender's attention at number 3.
You want to give people heartburn.
I do. And I'll tell you, here's the thing. This is a massive factor here because I hate waiting. I hate waiting.
That's fair.
And so the idea that I don't have to wait is so appealing.
Yeah. Wait, so that's number 3?
That's number 3. So number 2 is giving people heartburn because here's the thing. I do like punishing folks I don't like. And the idea that the punishment is not lethal, but tangibly that you're going to have an impact.
You're going to fuck up someone's day.
Significantly.
Yeah.
But not like enough that something really, really, really bad's going to happen. That's a great thing to have.
All right.
Number 1, let's be honest. Semi-functioning gills, you're telling me I can go swimming and won't have to pop up for extended periods of time? Get out of here. I'm going to be dominating things. Also, incredible party trick. I mean, you have to really think about it.
What parties are you going to? Are you getting in someone's bathtub?
Let me tell you something. You never know what's going to happen.
Are you rooftop partying?
Me?
Because I'm pretty sure you're not.
If I had the gills,
no.
I'm just telling you.
No.
If I had
Gills are
semi-functioning
obviously.
gills,
Please.
I would move to a coastal warm weather environment and use it all the time.
So for you, this is actually not a low-key superpower. This is a high-key, medium-key superpower.
5 minutes at a time?
5 minutes.
I'm
Well,
go
wait a second. Wait. How long can you hold your breath underwater right now? You can hold your breath for like a minute and a half, right? What are you going to do with the extra 3.5 minutes?
Okay, hold on.
I just want to point out too, this has nothing to do with water pressure. So it's not like you can like dive super deep or whatever. You'll still get crushed.
No, totally fine. I'm just talking about the prospects of jumping in a pool with your friends and you not coming up. People are panicking. It's like, get away from me. I'm good. I'm good to go.
Oh, I see. So
or I'm going to be like in a swimming meet and they're not going to know. And this guy's never coming up, just cutting right through the water.
Yeah. So I just, a couple things, questions, concerns.
Yes.
Whose swimming meet are you going to? What adult man swimming meet are you going to? Are you going to a high school swimming meet? Is that what you're
First of all, I'm not going to compete in the high school swimming meet because I'm not eligible.
Okay. Second, I just want to point out here that your party trick is not like, hey guys, look what I can do. It's more like, oh, everyone's going to call 911 and I'm going to ruin the party. The host is just going to sit there crying, which also kind of goes along with the heartburn thing. Cause making people suffer is kind of your thing.
It's a little lesson called minding your own business. I'm going to tell them I can do this thing. They're going to be like, no, you can't. Here's what it is. I'm going to make so much side money betting people because who expects it? Hey, watch this.
Especially because you're black.
Look at that. I mean, it's good color for me.
It's a good color for you.
That was a good ranker, Whitney.
Well, good. I'm glad. You got it wrong, by the way. So
what was your order?
Obviously, Tetris Brain is number 1.
Oh, God.
Ugh, I would love to be able to fit more things into small spaces. I'm sorry, I said that out loud.
That's what, in fact, she said. Now, we got.
So what did someone else say?
Oh, there's a lot of talking, not a lot of substance happening here. We're talking about the first debate. You see how we throw it up to each other, a little lob, a little alley, and then the oop. Debate number 1 for the 2020 presidential race is in the books. And if it's an audio book, you're never going to listen to it.
Never.
Whitney,
you're not going to.
I watched the 84-minute affair. You watched how much of it?
I mean, I heard some clips on my daily podcast that I listened to.
Oh, look at this, the flex.
Nice cherry picked. How did you do that? Just from the few, I mean, I think I probably heard a total of, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes. That's probably generous. How did you do 84 minutes of that?
Here's the thing. It was not an easy thing to do because it actually grated on my soul.
I believe you.
But nothing that the president did, the current president did, was particularly out of character.
Oh, of course not.
As much as it was behavior that's out of character for this norm. And so him being like, live tweeting in person, essentially.
Yeah.
And behaving like a petulant child was like, oh, that's what he does, but he's doing it here. Yeah. And so it was just kind of startling to see just how much someone who, by the way, remember, is decidedly behind in this race.
Yeah. Has
opted to go with, no, I'm just going to fight Biden and Chris Wallace and you, the viewer, and anyone else that is, these magical undecided people who are a bunch of look-at-me folks, by the way. I mean, just total look-at-me hacks out there. That it was just, like, oh, okay, it was a lot. But trust me, I had the baseball game on the laptop.
Picture-in-picture?
No. They don't allow any
call back.
Don't get me going.
Only our devotees will know.
Darn right. And so, yeah, like it was rough. Did you feel like you were missing out at all? Why didn't you watch? Tell me. So my understanding of debates, and I actually don't watch them. I remember watching them in 2016 only because I think to me, and maybe I think there were 3. 3 debates, yep.
That sound right?
That's right.
I watched maybe one of them, and it was because I went to a watch party. And I think there was just like sort of a morbid curiosity of like, how fucked up is this gonna be? Right? And like, I'm someone who actually was like kind of excited about Hillary Clinton. I mean, I get that she's super problematic and whatever, but like there were so many things that I was like, I think she will do a very good job. That's kind of how I was feeling. And I knew that Donald Trump was going to be garbage. And I think I just wanted to see like how hot and steamy, how smelly is this garbage going to be? And of the tiny clips that I heard from, what was it this week, he was even stinkier, steamier. He was like on fire compared to what I remember of the debate that I watched in 2016. But I mean, I didn't watch that debate, nor did I watch this debate because I don't need to make up my mind. That wasn't the intention, I should say, behind watching it in 2016. And obviously I'm not conflicted about who I'm going to vote for. To me, that's what a debate is for. I mean, we were talking in the pre-show meeting about like, in what other context are there debates? And it's like high school, middle school, where 2 people are arguing the opposite poles of a statement. I actually don't know exactly how debate works, but it's like you're taking the positive, I'm taking the negative, or vice versa. And
Right.
we are debating some issue, but we're talking about it in the same context. Like there is a level playing field that we can look at. In a presidential debate, and I mean, I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about pre-Trump. Like a presidential debate is not even the same thing. So when we look at what a debate is for, like I don't think it's for me, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's totally fair and right. And in many ways, it's not for me or most of the people that are watching. Right, most folks have already made their mind up. They've decided.
Is
And the
that what
cool
you
thing
think?
about the
Most of
debates
the
are,
viewers actually
yeah,
were not undecided?
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who
I mean,
are
I
these
think
undecided people? Who are they?
a bunch of look at me folks in Westerville, Ohio. I mean, just bunch of
How do you not know what you need to know right now?
Well, the president was not was not presenting himself in the best light, but I like some of his ideas. But Joe
Well, that's a
Biden was
good
much more
question.
personable, so shrug. Like,
But so that's a good question for you, of someone who is much more learned in the political realm. Is this actually a conversation about how someone comports themselves? Or is it supposed to be about what their ideas are?
well, it's both, right? How individuals, and the big reason I did watch is because as a political scientist and someone that does hashtag analysis, you want to see what you're going to be talking about. But the way people make decisions varies, and so for some folks, it really is about, hey, there were these debates during the Democratic campaign, and I know Trump has been doing some stuff, but cut out the noise, cut out the clips of things, right? Cut out the commentators. Let me just hear from the individuals. What do you think about the Supreme Court or coronavirus response or election integrity, which was a terrible question. There are other people that have a sense of, I know where I stand politically, but I do want the person that fills the office to not act like a jackass. And so I prefer
I didn't
someone.
think about it, but that's definitely on my list of criteria. I don't think I thought about it before 2016, 2015.
Right? Why would you? Like, we've had people that have been more or less personable. We have people that are more or less charismatic. But, you look at how people outside the country talk about the United States, and, they watch that it's an all-time low, and like, look at this clown show. To hear someone that was undecided say that even though Joe Biden, I thought, comported himself fine, I didn't think he did that great of a job for most of the debate. I thought he was fine. That even though Trump kind of stomped on everything, when Joe Biden said, something, calling the president a clown, that undecided voter was like, that was, you don't call the president a clown, dignified thing. And so like that doesn't make sense that rose to the equivalent of all the spewing and not following any rules and not answering any real questions. But people make up their decisions in different ways, and it is a chance for them to hear from the folks. But to your point, you were asked the question earlier, where else do we see debates besides high school in a confined space, and it is a technical assessment.
Right.
The other place I can think of is TV entertainment. How many political shows or sports shows have turned into one person sitting across from another? There's a timer and there's some topics, and they just start screaming at each other. Like, people have gotten used to that as a form of entertainment and are looking forward to it. And so, I'm sure some undecideds checked in, but Joe Biden made more money in the hour after the debate than any hour of his campaign, because a lot of partisans were already watching that, wanting to see, is this guy going to push back against this bully? And for the Republican side, you got folks that say, is Trump going to take it to the socialist left-wing wild guy? And so
he's like the most middle of the road guy I can think of. I'm not mad at him. He's not going to like push our country forward.
It's a reset.
He's fine. Yes, it is. That's a really great way to think about it. He's not a bad choice, but he's just not going to move us anywhere positive.
You said something in our pre-show that I thought was really interesting to talk about here, which was how much of like the norms of this are changing, and like, should we drop this? There are a lot of people that said, cancel the rest of the debates. We don't need another one of these things.
Well, and I know that the committee that actually sort of puts these on is looking at structural changes because of the backlash, because people were so annoyed. And annoyed, I think, was like the word. My mom said that to me today. She was like, can you imagine? They asked people if they were annoyed about this debate. I'm sorry, my mom's not like a white lady from Minnesota.
I was going to say that sounds very Fargo.
No, it does, right? It's so interesting. Fargo, check it out on
FX?
No, whatever. They don't give us money.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying Chris Rock is on it.
Yes.
No, my mom was like, how weird is that that's a question that the pollsters were asking of people? But annoyance, I mean, again, I listened to 3 minutes, if that. I was annoyed. But yeah, like I think about debate as like it's an opportunity when there is little opportunity to hear from the candidate or understand what the candidate is or create your own story, let's be real, about who the candidate is. I'm not voting for Joe Biden because of an objective view of him. I'm voting for him because of my story about what that means in the larger context. And I can just think of like when presidential candidates, I should say, had to do their campaigning via like covered wagon or whatever the fuck. And there would be a time where it was really important for a debate to happen, for it to be covered by the media, for people all over to really get a sense of what does this person stand for. And again, I think there's a lot of, that was also a time where the Electoral College was perhaps a necessity when you couldn't necessarily count on the vote coming in from every citizen from all these sort of far-flung places. And we just don't live in that same world. And so, I mean, I asked you that because I was really like, who's watching this? Who is this for? The only people that I think are coming out as winners based on what I've heard is the people covering it, the people who want to have an opinion about it. Like of the daily podcasts that I listened to, 3 out of 4 had a story that they taped that night that aired the next day. And it's a little bit like, okay, I don't really want to hear about, I listened to one of them, by the way, because I don't really want to hear it. It's not actually the news that makes, it's not actually the news that makes me feel like I'm connecting with the world or I'm understanding things any better. So if it's not for the undecided voter, I get that it's for the partisan. I like, the point that you made there about Joe Biden actually receiving a lot more traction in his campaign. But like, why are we still doing this? Trump aside, why are we still doing this?
We're a country of tradition, and
which is stupid. People are talking about the fucking Constitution. Those people were racist assholes. Sorry.
Yeah, but the founding fathers, you can't do anything that the founding fathers would do.
I don't care what a bunch of dead white guys thought. I don't see why we can't just like scrap the Constitution and get a new one. I'm going wide. Alan, you were saying.
I actually agree with you. I'm not wedded to this thing at all. But yeah, I mean, I think there is an element of people kind of hold up the Kennedy-Nixon debates where Kennedy was cool, calm customer, and Nixon was sweating all over the place, and it changed the tenor of the election because they saw how calm and collected John was. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But since then, the access to information and just the 24-hour peppering of information about these candidates, you could go find their stances. Like, it's not as if you couldn't go and figure out and line up what are the things that matter to you and then find out what's going on. I still think, to your point, it drew a big rating, down from 4 years ago, but still it's something people tune into. And let's be clear, right? Yeah. There were no commercials. You had people begging for a commercial to take a break from that. It was that bad. But there's not like advertisers are making money through this. Right. It really is, I think, one of these moments of people do care, and most folks don't really follow politics. And so if you were going to make the case for a vibrant civic life, having something that people tune in to across the spectrums, even if they've already decided to be a part of a political conversation with 60 million, 70, 80 million of their fellow country folk, is something that we may want to encourage when fewer of us are talking to each other. But that was a disaster. And frankly, I don't think changing the rules is going to address the core problem, which is the format was fine. Trump was behaving like a clown. And so unless you're going to be able to mute or turn off the mics, which they should have been doing at least, 16 years ago, then you're going to have someone that says, like a bully, I'm not going to follow your rules. What are you going to do about it? And if the answer is we're going to just kind of shrug and like hope you follow the rules, then guess what? You're going to have two more of these things.
Yeah. I'm going to watch none of them.
The VP debates next week.
Oh, I might watch that. I probably won't.
One of the weird things about the VP debate is they're sitting down. Why don't they get to stand up?
Oh, that's interesting. Wait, how do you know that?
I've watched a lot of VP debates.
Oh, they're always sitting down.
Yep. At a table. And they're, it's just very this awkward thing. Maybe this year they'll stand up unless they get a really socially distant table. But so someone I was talking to during the night of the debate, the first presidential debate, said, you don't want to confuse the American voter about who's in charge. And so you need to have the people standing up as the ones in charge. And the VPs are sitting down, which I laughed at. But honestly,
I mean,
with this country.
That sounds legitimate. Not legitimate. That sounds like that's where that came from. Huh. I get it.
So that, as they say, is that.
Yeah.
Whitney.
Allen.
Have you ever tried to catch a tiger by its tail?
I mean, like yesterday. Those things are so fucking slippery.
One of the slipperiest, the slickest tigers?
Slipperiest.
Yeah. A really, an incredibly elusive tiger is Princeton University.
Okay.
And they're in the middle of a bit of a controversy here, pitting them between folks that care about, calling out systemic racism, and folks that are really invested in shutting that conversation down.
Yeah.
Whitney, there was an incredible exchange just in the last couple of weeks where the president of Princeton sent out a letter basically acknowledging President Eisgruber of Princeton, acknowledging that historically the Princeton University has had issues with systemic racism, and that, quote, that racism and the damage it does to people of color nevertheless persist at Princeton, as in our society, sometimes by conscious intention, but more often through unexamined assumptions and stereotypes, ignorance or insensitivity, and the systemic legacy of past decisions and policies, end quote. Really owning up to that Princeton, like a lot of institutions, has not been fair to people of color, particularly Black people. The Los Angeles Times had an editorial that acknowledged its systemic racism and the role it's played over the years. But the Department of Ed looked at what Princeton's doing and said, we should investigate this, because perhaps you all have violated the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which says that institutions that receive federal funding cannot discriminate or deny the benefits of any activity on the basis of race. Mm-hmm. And it really has pitted two deeply entrenched camps. On the one hand, faculty members, students, and people of society that say, you all need to own and acknowledge not just academic institutions, but institutions throughout society, that systemic racism is real and it happens and there are consequences to it. Own that so that you can fix it. Going up against a more conservative right-wing group that says, it's a lot of like crybabies, soft liberals complaining all the time about unequal treatment when they just need to work harder. And, they're just trying to look for an excuse for their shortcomings. And I think putting this kind of investigation as a tool to have Princeton either choose, well, if you acknowledge systemic racism, then maybe you have a problem here, and that's going to cost you millions of dollars. Or, well, you have to push it back against it. And then you say, well, what was that letter? Was that just kowtowing to a bunch of pressure or not? What do you make of this kind of manipulation in this case, but the tensions between these two sides and how ultimately that is manifest into action or inaction?
So the first thing that this made me think about when you posted this story in our bullpen is I was thinking about how weird it was, all the different types of mea culpas that I was getting in my inbox after the killing of George Floyd. And it was really weird to me to be like, do I really care about what Sephora has to say about racial justice? And I think to a certain extent, like that's much more exaggerated than something like Princeton, an institution of higher learning, a research institution. These are institutions which actually need to be held to account. Do I really care about what Sephora is doing? Not really, but if I were a makeup person, like I would care a lot. It is actually really important to people in that particular sphere. I think the Princeton sphere is really, really big. And it is important that, and I say Princeton, but Princeton and other universities like it. And I don't just mean the Ivies, I do mean like private colleges. I think it's really important that they take ownership of and actively work to dismantle the ways in which they've been supportive of white supremacy. I don't think that's that much to ask for. And I think that perhaps like the brave thing is not sending out an email or writing a letter. The brave thing is actually just taking a stand and saying whatever happens as a result of this is what happens as a result of this. And I don't think we can hold ourselves accountable to what, and this might sound a little bit dramatic, I suppose, but like we can't hold ourselves accountable to what our enemy believes is appropriate. And in this case, I really do believe like these people that are really going after Princeton for this simply to do so, as opposed to people who are going after Princeton for this because it's the right thing to do. Like you can't have your actions be dependent on what those people who don't share your values, who aren't actually interested in making things better. In my opinion, you just have to like let things go. Does that make sense? Like Princeton is going to reap whatever they have sown. Yeah. And the generation of Princeton that is reaping that now is not the generation of Princeton that is guilty of all those things. But it's also like Princeton is living in that legacy still. Like we can't look back and say, well, Princeton's not being racist right now, which by the way is not true. But Princeton is the way Princeton is right now is a direct result of white supremacy through generations. And the organization has to reckon with that at some point. And I've always really wondered, like, what would it really look like if the United States had a version of sort of like the truth and reconciliation movement? Like if we really genuinely decided that we were going to try to address and heal wounds of the past and the founding of this country, like what would things look like? And this is a little microcosm of that. Like what is it going to look like at Princeton now when they're really, if they are really genuinely trying to get this right? And some of it might actually be that there's some manipulation by the other side to make them look bad and make them pay.
Well, it really does come off as well, what about black on black crime in Chicago?
Sure.
Type of thing. And one of the parts that...
Time. I got to go get my thing.
Okay.
Let me pause.
You know, it like, besides it being, it comes off as the kind of black on black crime kind of argument for kind of addressing this. And I 100% agree with what you were saying. I think practically one of the difficulties is that institutions, even if let's say they care, there are these practical considerations that there are a whole bunch of people that are invested in these institutions that may not. And that these types of obstacles, these roadblocks, these blatant attempts just to get in the way of progress, we know are actually pretty effective. whether we want it to be or not. And so the idea for people that are alums of the institution that may be sympathetic, or the board of trustees, which may be sympathetic to this, is going to say, do you want us to be risking fighting with the government and tens of millions of dollars, maybe if you add it all up, hundreds of millions of dollars, if you think about research grants and NSF funding and foundations, foundation grants, over this clear attempt to obstruct things. I'm not saying, I am not saying that Princeton shouldn't continue forward. And for the record, they think that this investigation is ridiculous. The Trump administration, via the Department of Education, is looking for any records or any Princetonians who have been discriminated on the basis of race since 2015 to step forward under oath, generate sensitive documents related to any claim about systemic, quote unquote, or embedded, quote unquote, racism. And so they are, the administration is trying to make this into a big thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this should stop future entities and institutions from making these statements.
Yeah.
But I know practically it will give pause, and it will hurt and stunt some of the momentum that is essential for having people, it's kind of ridiculous that we call this bravery to go and stand up to racism.
I mean,
in kind of blatant forms. But
it is in the face of things like this.
It takes some courage.
Yeah.
It takes some courage, right? And a courage that, again, we talked about in a different context, that these institutions, which rely on at least academics, they talk about the facts and merit.
Yeah.
But realistically, you and I both know, we've both spent a lot of time in education, that institutions run away from those values and get real nervous when it's bad PR, bad press, and money's on the line.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's something to keep an eye on as we keep pushing for things like this, that you may run up against people that understand the political calculus, not Republican, Democrat.
Yeah.
But the political calculus of how to build a coalition of stakeholders, and will say, here's a threat. And even though I can make argument after argument that this is silly, we know that there are people that bend to pressure and don't want to have a fight.
Yeah.
And that can stunt these kind of things. And I don't know what the solution is, because I think we need to be clear, but I think it's recognizing that people will try to pull this stuff, and it could be a problem.
I'm also just really present to how this seems indicative of a larger thing that this administration seems to do, which is to sort of just like weaponize government.
Oh, yeah.
That we have seen the Department of Ed actually rolling back civil rights protections willy-nilly in other areas, but they're getting real clear and tough love to Princeton in this case. And again, to your point, it really is an intimidation and manipulation tactic. It is about really silencing a movement towards actually taking on white supremacy. And in a way, it's so fucked up and perverse, but it almost legitimizes the argument that white supremacy exists, which is silly that that's even an argument, right? But why would they be reacting in such a way if there weren't some kind of a, because nobody actually believes that they genuinely care about civil rights.
No.
They've shown multiple times, I mean, the whole administration, of course, but specifically the Department of Education. The most recent examples, or the most salient examples I can think of, are not race related, but gender identity related, but still, absolutely. I mean, we know that these are people that actually don't value civil rights. So it's pretty plain to anybody who's actually paying attention that this is a knee-jerk reaction in fear, in defense of the norm of white supremacy, but also like all the other things that prop that up.
In this piece that hopefully will be linked to our episode, The Atlantic, how Princeton opened itself to the ultimate troll, Connor Friedersdorf. I'm probably mispronouncing his name.
That is gorgeous. So are you German? What?
It's like I was there the whole time. One of the things that I think that the author does here that I am really nervous about is this kind of equivalent, we need to strategize differently and then therefore downplay the rhetoric that we use. And so he talks about academic stakeholders ought to eschew strategic hyperbole when doing this important work. And that really pisses me off because,
like, what does that look like? That's like a very heady phrase.
Well,
what does that actually mean?
It's like saying white supremacy is that it's too sticky and it's too icky and it hurts people's feelings, and so we can't use.
Is it that it hurts people's feelings, or is it that people don't understand it?
Well, I think it's a both and. Okay. They don't understand it, but it also hurts their feelings.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I've had conversations with people who are like, "Wait, what's white supremacy?" And you give me 10 minutes, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it now."
But you're talking to people that want to know what it is.
That's true.
Right.
It's a fine point.
Versus folks that are not interested, right? You know, when people throw out the black on black crime thing, they're not actually interested in having the conversation. No, they just want you to get off the law enforcement has a problem point.
No, and they want to weaken those gun laws so those black people can kill themselves faster. Again, it's the same Midwestern mom, apparently.
And so I just look at that and say, you know, when someone says, like, you know, Friedersdorf says, if they keep inflating their claims, the term racism will lose whatever power it has to grab a community's attention and prompt urgent remedies, and close quote. And my pushback against that, and my disdain for that kind of logic is racism has a particular meaning and takes a particular form. It's not inflated to connect it to not just how many bodies are here, but it's looking at the retention and success of these bodies, who's been left out today, 10 years ago, 5 generations ago, and going forward, where, like, all of that is there. And so if the solution is narrow your scope, don't use racism, don't be calling people racist, don't say what, then I think you're going to actually enter in why we haven't had more progress, which is because we have never had an honest conversation about the full extent of racism in a systemic and institutional way on society. And that kind of logic in response to these types of BS roadblocks prevents us from getting there. And I think that is dangerous, of people that do say, yeah, the Trump administration, the Trump Department of Ed are wacko, but then you can't play on their terms, which is by minimizing the stakes.
Yeah. Can I share with you a nerdy coachism?
Oh, yes, please.
So in order to tame something, you have to name something.
I like this.
Well, it's like one of those things, you can't actually address what's going on if you don't just straight up say, here's what's going on. And it's when you hide something, when you withhold something, when you feel the need to pretend that something else is going on, those are all protection things, right? And if you're continuing to protect, you actually don't get to the root cause of what's causing you to feel like, what is actually triggering that defense mechanism. And it's common, and it makes sense. Obviously, as human beings, we need to have evolved to be, to prevent ourselves from, like, falling into pits or being eaten by, I don't know, woolly rhinoceri or whatever. We needed to have some sort of a sense of self-protection. That's a thing. And most living things have that. I actually don't know of any living things that don't, but I don't know. But we get into this space often of thinking that the best thing to do is defend. And honestly, if you actually just open yourself up, and to your point earlier, like, be courageous about, like, hey, we're trying to take a stand for something. This is what we believe in. This is what we value. You actually get to the root cause, as opposed to a Band-Aid that you may put on a situation, which makes it better for the meantime, but doesn't actually address what's really going on. So it can continue to fester, so it can continue to, show up in other ways. I don't know if that sounds like racism to you, but that's racism.
Yeah.
No Band-Aids are big enough for this.
Can you give us the coachism one more time? I just want
Yeah,
people to have it stuck in their minds.
In order to tame something, you have to name something.
Gotta name something.
Mm-hmm. I've heard other people say it like name it to tame it, which is like you actually have to say it. Name it to tame it. I don't know. Put that on a trucker hat or something. Not a red one, but.
I'm not even going to make a reference to taming a tiger. I'm just going to move on. But I will say.
Oh, that was good.
I mean, it's what I do. But
I didn't mean to give you that.
Well, yeah, but I took it, and because you gave it, and so I appreciate it. But I will say this: that kind of coaching logic, to me, sets a real benchmark for where you want to go. And speaking of benchmarks, I want to talk a little bit about restaurants and bars. And I love Lifehacker as a blog.
You really do.
I do. I would write there if I could and if they wanted me. Claire Lauer over at Lifehacker introduced a concept of evaluating restaurants based on what she determines are benchmark dishes. Mm-hmm. And it's the idea of that you go to a lot of different places, you eat there's a lot of different cooking styles, you don't know who's in the kitchen. Having something in your back pocket, some kind of standard issue thing you're going to get across the board for whatever genre of food as a benchmark to get an assessment of their approach or philosophy, whether it be food or drink. Yeah. Whitney, before we get into our benchmarks for restaurants and drinks, you mentioned something about being a flavor adventurer. And not being a flavor. Can you explain to the audience what that is and how does that apply to you when you're going out eating and drinking?
Yeah, so Claire Lower of Lifehacker, I actually have no idea if that's how to say her last name, but Claire actually uses this phrase. She said, there's a whole menu to enjoy, and I consider myself a flavor explorer. And she talks about how when she gets takeout or she goes to a restaurant, she is never ordering the same thing twice. And I am actually the exact opposite of that, which is that like when I have a craving for a thing, I go to that restaurant, but I don't just go there for the ambiance or because I generally like everything on that menu. It's like, no, I'm actually going to a Razu for the palmito salad with shrimp. That's what I'm going there for.
Very specific.
Don't try to tell me that I should try the ropa vieja. I know it's good. No, ropa vieja is Cuban. I don't know what they have. See, that's an example of what I'm talking about. I know their menu so little that I don't actually even know what else is on their menu. They have plantains. I know they have plantains. They have the maduros. I think that's the sweet plantains. And then they have the other ones. Anyway, what tostones?
Oh, I love a tostone.
No, I'm a Maduro girl.
Wow.
It's just a little bit of like warm ice cream with them, or warm ice cream. It's frozen ice cream.
I don't know how that works.
Maduros, you guys, it's been a week. So I am definitely the opposite of a flavor adventurer. I'm not interested in trying something new. When I get Ethiopian food, I know exactly what I'm getting of the sampler menu. Don't try to tell me to try something else. First of all, Ethiopian restaurants rarely have a special. So
also true.
What's your take on that? Like, are you a flavor adventurer, or are you a more like, I'm going to go there because I have this specific craving?
This is going to sound weird. Of takeout places, I'm more willing to get the same thing. I know the Chinese restaurant takeout I want to go to for the same greasy dish. It's going to be quality. I noticed that you didn't shout them
out, Alan.
I did not. Exactly, Caps. Exactly.
We got to get that Arazu money.
All of this. This is space for advertising. All of it. Right here.
Right here.
Okay. It seems like it's going down there. Oh, the microphone. Yes. Oh, yes.
I'm just saying. Okay, so you know what you want.
But when I go to like the nicer restaurants, you know what I am? I love to hear about a special. I want to, not just what it is, what makes it special. Is it one of these once a month deals? Is it we had we got a shipment of a certain type of thing, and so we're going to use it, and so we're not going to have this for like another year?
Ooh,
or is this a
okay.
thing that they're trying out that they want to put on the menu as a regular thing? I like to get a good special. So I think probably in that sense, because I think a special, either for price reasons, which I'm not interested in, but for like, this goes with the head chef style, that tells me I'm going to get something that is going to be defining of their culinary craft or taste. And I want to be a part of that.
Well, so I think this goes directly to Ms. Lower's argument, which is that the restaurant will say, here's the special, here's the limited edition, here's the super fresh catch of the day. And that is actually not the way to measure the efficacy of the restaurant. How delicious is it?
Yes.
You actually need to go with something that is more tried and true, something that is more universal across different restaurants of the same type, so that you actually get a good sense of like, I'm sorry, I get that you have this very special capicola thing going on, but your Reuben sucks. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that's actually, her argument is, that's actually how you know whether or not a restaurant is good or not, is can they execute the tried and true in a way that surpasses all others. And to be fair, to have a Reuben that stands out above just the average Jewish deli, I don't know what you're going to do, because 11 on Wabash.
Oh, great choice.
It's an amazing Reuben. And you get a little matzo ball soup on the side.
I know what you're doing, Caps. I see you just going to putting these feelers out. You're just looking for free food. I know what you're doing.
I'm just saying, 11, I could put it right here, just your name, and like order from 11. I actually have no idea how they're doing right now. I mean, gosh, that is not a place that I imagine gets a lot of.
I'm glad you're supporting one of your favorite places. I mean, my goodness.
It's not my favorite place, but in terms of like, do they do a solid Reuben? Absolutely. And to be fair, Reuben, I'm not actually eating Reubens anymore anyway, because I'm only eating birds and fish. But I do think that there is something to be said for, like, when you're really looking at whether or not a restaurant is great, are the specials, are the fleeting things, are the momentary inspirations of the chef the way to measure, or is it actually something else?
I have a set of benchmark dishes, and I've never thought of them this way.
Oh my gosh, tell me.
At a certain, this may be a little bit rare, but I don't think rare is the word, but it's not necessarily universal. Appetizers, I'm very interested in your crab cakes. If you have a crab cake on the menu, that is something that almost without fail, I will order. Okay. And that will tell me something.
You know, I have a bunch of crab meat in my fridge. I should make a crab cake.
There's no way that I would know that.
No, I just said that.
Well, you said you know, and I was like, I don't.
Oh, got it, yeah.
So I would say that that's one version.
Okay. What makes a good crab cake?
You know, you need to have some spice.
Yeah.
Right? And I like to see the thickness of the crab cake, right? I like a nice little brown top, soft on the inside, a little bit of spice here. Good crab cake. I love a crab cake. Now, if we're talking sandwiches.
Let's always talk sandwiches.
We're talking a club sandwich, Caps.
I mean, I guess.
Because here's the thing. You could put
an extra little piece of bread for.
You could put too much bread on it, you ruin the whole sandwich. You could ruin the whole sandwich. Here now, can I tell you this? Along with the club sandwich, and I only have French fries. I'm very focused on the French fry.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a consistent thing. And if we're talking about entrees, I'll give you a little something off the beaten path here. The pork chop. I'm going to see what you can do with a piece of bread. Not a baked chicken, not a fit. Give me a pork chop. Is it going to be tender? Is it going to have a juiciness to it? What kind of flavor? Just a pork chop.
Okay.
Those would be my kind of benchmark dishes. What for you? Either benchmark foods or drinks?
No, that's a great question. So Claire Lower talks about one of her benchmarks is a martini, which I think is a really great way to think about it. A martini is a really classic drink, And there are different sort of twists that people put on it. I've heard of people having like coffee martinis, which sounds absolutely insane to me. But like the way you make a martini, I think can be like really, really important. I think for me, I'm a Chicagoan, an old fashioned, like give me a solid old fashioned, and that will be an indicator for me of how great your bar is. I mean, obviously that's for devotees of our show will know most of the time it's just liquor and citrus. Oh, I'm sorry. There's ice. But
ASMR crowd.
That's right. No, I'm not going to do it. Nikki, cut that out. That's stupid. Shout out to Nikki. Shout out
Nikki's
to Nikki
fantastic.
I do think that something like a classic mixed cocktail, martinis are great. But again, as a Chicagoan and a fan of brown liquor, I have to say the old fashioned is a really great benchmark drink to see if someone really knows their stuff.
On the food side, you have any benchmarks?
Ooh, that's a good one. I did mention the Reuben earlier. I think when we think about, again, like just sort of general restaurant, knowing that, you know, we might have a different benchmark if it was Japanese food or Indian food or what have you. I think a general benchmark for me is actually a burger. Yes. I am quite particular about burgers. I actually try to order them rare, which I think is
rare.
I do. I get them like pink in the middle, like slightly gold in the middle. Wow. And a lot of places actually won't serve it to you rare because I might die, I think.
Yeah, that would do it.
But it is actually a good benchmark of like how strongly do they feel about their meat producers. So my go-to for burgers in the city actually is Rootstock, and I know of the farm where they get them. I didn't say I know the farm, but I know of the farm where they get the beef. They're getting beef from 1 or 2 cows maybe at a time. They're not getting beef that actually might be a composite of 50 different animals. And there's something to be said for that. And I do have to say, in terms of just the general quality of how they put that burger together, it's not just the meat, but it's how's it seasoned, and the brioche bun, and, you know, the aioli and the greens and the, oh my God, marinated peppers. It is an experience for sure. And I think that a burger actually tells you quite a bit about what a restaurant's vision is, how they see their entire food chain. That's not really what I mean. Production chain?
Oh, supply chain?
Supply chain. Thank you. I think it actually says a lot about what they care about.
So all I want to do is eat a burger. I haven't had a burger in a while.
We went to Rootstock once. Did you have a burger when we went?
I did.
We went.
You recommended it. It was a lot of juice, but it was very tasty.
Well, how do you order your burger?
Medium. And then I use my mouth and say, I'd like a burger. And they're like, do you want cheese on it? Like, no. Like, what do you want? Everything, no cheese. I mean,
no, you answered my question. You're just being a jackass now. But yeah, medium is, I think, probably what you get in most places. The place where I have been getting chicken sandwiches recently is Bianca's in the Humboldt Park neighborhood.
Bianca's.
Very, very good. Fried chicken sandwich, thigh. That's another like really, really good one. Do you make a good chicken sandwich? Are you making your chicken with light meat or dark meat or a combination of both? Let's talk about it. Anyway.
Let's talk about it. Seems like you're about to have a CNN special.
Let's talk about it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And since you're giving out these kind of tips and tricks and places to go, Whitney, it's time for our pending recommendation section.
Yeah, they're not gonna approve that one there, Alan.
Yeah, especially after we came after the Trump administration.
I'm so glad that you asked me to go first, because I am actually having some feelings about my recommendations for the recommendation session. I'm gonna have to rethink the way I'm thinking, Alan. My recommendations are very straightforward. Hey, I listened to this. Hey, I saw this. Hey, I did this thing. You should do it. And I'm gonna try to get deeper for you guys. All right. I just want you to know I'm committing to that. And
committing to
my recommendation is surface level. this week.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm just saying you get more creative with your recommendations than I do. And this was my idea for a segment.
Yeah, but people actually do the things that you want them to do. They're just like, oh,
want
okay,
them to
Alan.
do the things I want. I mean, hoopla, come on. It's like free books. Movies, too. There's movies. I watched the Amy Poehler, Paul Rudd fake romantic comedy, which I can't remember even the name of, but it is so stupid in like a great way. My recommendation this week is a podcast called Jamel Hill is Unbothered. Jamel Hill is
Love that podcast.
You can't, well, no, go ahead. You go ahead and, get on the bandwagon of this recommendation. So Jamel Hill is a former sports journalist with the ESPN. Is that right, Alan? Did I get that right?
She was with the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network. Yes. She's currently
at the
Is that what
that stands for?
It is.
ESPN. So she is a former sports journalist, but one of the reasons why, so anyway, she transitioned off. It was a very messy departure for her. I don't even remember why. I don't know the saga of who she is outside of this podcast. What I know is someone recommended this podcast to me and I started listening to it. I don't know, I guess when it started, maybe like a year and a half ago. It's not that new of a podcast, but it's also not that old. She really transitioned to this as a way to bring in anybody that she thought was somehow interesting. So it's not actually a sports-based podcast, although she certainly has sports stars on, but it is her and another person in conversation for 60 minutes or so. And I have to say, she's one of the best interviewers that I've ever heard. She's really great at, she clearly does her research. So you know that when she's talking to someone, she is going to give you a very clear picture of who this person is. A podcast that I also listen to, which is interview-based, is Jonathan Van Ness of Queer Eye fame. He has a podcast that is just like Getting Curious, which is like he just brings on someone and he doesn't necessarily do a ton of research every time. Also delightful in a different way. But Jamel Hill like goes deep into people's histories and into their work. And she really comes up with these questions that like multiple times in the course of listening to this podcast, someone has said to her, wow, I can't believe you're asking me about that. Or, oh, nobody ever asks me. Or, oh, I can't believe that I get to talk about this thing about myself. And she's really clear about making sure that she sees her guests as whole people instead of just whatever it is that they produce. A great example of this is she talks to Dan Rather about, I think it's like his Instagram account or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's such a great thing. Dan Rather is this like historic figure in journalism in the United States. And she has such a wonderful, nuanced conversation with him about the media, about race, about history, about our memory of all of these things. And then she really, like, I think warms his heart by asking him these questions about like what foods he prefers or something at the end. I can't even remember what she asked him, but it's a really great podcast. I think if you just want to have something on while you're doing laundry or walking the dog or, going for a walk or whatever, I just think that this will make you feel like you're a part of a conversation that you want to be a part of. And I will say there are people that she's had on the show that I've been like, I don't actually really know who you are. And then I'm introduced to this like really amazing thinker or what have you. And then there are people that she has on that I'm just like, I thought I knew who you were. And now I actually see like there was a whole bunch of shit I didn't know. My favorite episode to date is the conversation she had with Cat Williams. It is really, really good. And so I highly recommend Jamel Hill is Unbothered. She is an amazing, amazing interviewer and just like a top-notch journalist. And it's a very high quality conversation-based podcast. So I think y'all should listen.
To close a couple of loops there, the
Please.
Amy Poehler, Paul Rudd vehicle was They Came Together. Which
People
was
are like, what are you talking about? That was 3 minutes ago.
I'm closing the loops. The podcast, Jamel Hill is Unbothered, started April 2019. So yeah, it's not
not that
new,
long
but
ago.
not that old. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
She left ESPN because this was during the time when it was not cool to talk politics, and she kept violating their social media guidelines talking about politics, and they were not cool with that, and so they let her go.
Isn't it funny that people are like that? Sports have always been political.
And now there's Black Lives Matter on courts and fields and stuff.
Yeah.
And just to echo what you said at the end, you know, a lot of people end up meeting the people on sports TV, part of that debate type kind of format, as online or as TV commentators. Jamel Hill, the journalist named in 2018 the NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists, Journalist of the Year, she has a incredible journalistic record and is a phenomenal writer. I would encourage people to go back and look at her stuff when she was at the Detroit Free Press, where she started off covering college sports and then later the Pistons. I mean, just her pieces in the Atlantic are outstanding, but just as a journalist, really gives the kind of insight to the craft that I think should be a model for everyone, really.
I'll say too, just real quick, the most recent episode, she interviews Chelsea Clinton, which to me is someone who I was like, yeah, okay, I know Chelsea Clinton was like, that was the reason why I straightened my curly hair when I was a kid, is like, because she was embarrassed of also having curly hair, and I did what she did. But I just have to say, like, she does such a really, really good job. And again, it's not like as a sports journalist, there's no through line. You're not like, oh yeah, okay, I totally get why she's having this person on. She chooses people, or it seems like to me, she chooses people because she thinks that they have something to offer her audience. And in that way, I was like, oh wow, I'm totally looking at Chelsea Clinton in a very, very different way than I used to. I will also shout out a couple different episodes. The Jennifer Lewis episode. Absolutely amazing. A complete Jennifer Lewis is amazing on her own. Again, to hear someone who is such a good journalist talk to her. The Natasha Rothwell episode is also really good. For those who don't know her, she is Kelly on Insecure, but she's also a writer and a producer. Natasha Rothwell she's also the complete opposite of Kelly in real life. I said the Cat Williams episode. The Ashley Nicole Black episode is really, really amazing. The Damon Young episode is amazing. Again, anybody who doesn't know Damon Young, you really need to get on that. There's just so many. I'm like scrolling through here right now, and I'm looking at like all the episodes that I've listened to, and they're all just so good. Lakeith Stanfield. Please listen to this podcast, y'all. It's so good.
Only after you listen to ours and rate, review, and subscribe.
Okay, well, we should probably get done so they could go do that. Alan, what's your recommendation?
Very short, very simple.
Let's do it.
I recommend you stop calling members of Congress that aren't your own.
Why?
Well, it's a couple of different reasons.
What if I'm mad at them?
Then you should call your own member of Congress and call some advocacy groups. One of the issues with out-of-state or out-of-district people calling is that, A, you may be blocking up the lines of people in district and in state. Okay. But the other big reason is members of Congress serve a very specific area. And so out-of-staters talking about that they're not happy with something while you may be feeling better doesn't have any bearing because you don't actually get to vote for those folks. And so like that office kind of doesn't care what you think. Okay. And so you would want to, possibly coordinate people within those districts to be making calls or to be calling your member of Congress. But when I, in Chicago, Illinois, call Mitch McConnell's office somewhere in Kentucky, like, okay, the 708 numbers popped up. Like, okay, that's probably not a constituent. Don't really have to address it. They're upset. I can ignore it and keep moving. And so it's just a small thing that we think about expressing ourselves. And I think, yeah, there are a handful of people, maybe Mitch McConnell or maybe Speaker Pelosi in the House. But generally, you're probably not being nearly as effective as you want. And you could be creating unintended consequences for people that do live in those districts because they can't get through because the lines are all busy and the inboxes are all full. So think about alternative ways for expressing your preferences, calling your reps, coordinating your calls with people that are in that district or state, and reaching out to advocacy groups that do a lot of different impact campaigns that I think would actually be more effective. That's my recommendation.
So just to be clear, your recommendation is to stop doing one thing, but your recommendation really is to get involved locally. Get involved with the people who actually represent you, getting involved with organizations that care about the things that you care about, regardless of where they're actually housed. Alan, how can people find out how to call their actual representative or how to email their actual representative?
Well, you can go to Ballotpedia, where they have a lot of information on members of Congress, and they have links to their homepages. But honestly, go into your search engine of choice and type in.
Go?
If that's your search engine of choice. Sponsorship. And type in, who is my representative? And you can find out not just who these people are, but in fact, how to contact them. There are many different ways. But civic engagement is oftentimes about you contacting your people.
Very much so. I mean, our responsibility doesn't end at the ballots. It's very much about holding people responsible once they are seated. So I appreciate that. I genuinely, this is like a real genuine civic responsibility question. I never call. I only email. Is that, should I actually be calling?
Should you be?
I guess what I mean to say is like, are our representatives more likely to listen if it's a voicemail? Because I'm assuming I'm not going to get to talk to anybody.
You'd be surprised.
Would I be surprised?
It might be, yeah. There's a lot of people that also don't call their representatives.
Well, I don't. And I think often, perhaps part of the reason for it is that a lot of organizations, advocacy organizations now are very good about populating an email for you. So you click a link, it generates your email for you, and you can just edit it as you please, and then you can send it. And I find that more often than not, if I am motivated around something, I can easily find one of those. So I don't actually have to draft an email, on my own. Not that it's that hard to say like, hey, Tammy Duckworth, it's really not a good idea that there are non-consent medical procedures happening in detention centers. Like, I could just write that. That's actually not that hard to write. But when all that news broke a couple of weeks ago, there's so many advocacy groups that you could find where it's like one click and it populates it for you. But I'm actually wondering if like maybe that dilutes the urgency or the efficacy of the message itself. Like people are like, oh, this is an auto or a spam. What am I trying to say? I guess spam. Like are Tammy Duckworth's people now saying like, this is spam?
Well, people are aware that these services exist, right? Yeah. It is often thought of as the hardest thing is probably the most effective thing because it shows that you put in like maximal effort.
All right.
So like going to a representative's office, like that's probably the most effective. Anything where you can actually be a human being that has some kind of interaction with someone, like you're probably not going to get the senator, but you may get like someone who's working in the office, and if you keep following up, or honestly, writing a letter,
like a snail mail letter.
Like a snail mail letter, yeah. Because remember, these folks in these offices, like they, especially locally, they're about constituency services. Yeah. And serving the constituents mean listening to them when they have something to say, and so. I would never tell you again not to do the preform email because you want your preferences expressed.
Yeah.
But they also know that if they're getting the same type of structured email, they can probably filter out very quickly like what's happening here. And so it should be, in my mind, part of a larger combination of things that.
Maybe I'll go visit them.
Yeah, go visit them.
I don't know when they're home, but.
You can look up your reps and look up their office hours.
I'll go visit them. I'll go visit their admin staff. Maybe I'll bring them cupcakes.
Bring cupcakes and some demands.
Well, I do have to say, I generally am quite happy with the things that I hear from Illinois representatives. That being said, I don't know a ton about the state legislature, so maybe I have to get a little bit, I don't know, sassy with the people from Cook County who are going to Springfield. I don't know.
Midwestern Midwestern person going to go to Springfield.
Right. It's the same accent. Like I've drunk too much and now I have no distinction between Illinois and Minnesota. But
you can give us your preferences to our email account, splitthediff@gmail.com. Don't shake your head.
I'm just saying that's you. You're emailing Alan if you do that. But
if you want to
though, tell him what you want to hear.
Absolutely. And if you want to contact Whitney and I, but primarily Whitney, SplitDiffCast on Twitter. Wendy, you should run our Instagram page.
What kind of Instagram page would we have?
You do a lot of live stuff. You do a lot of screenshots.
I think what I would do is mostly just retweet blur.tv stuff.
Also a place that you should go check out, which you're at now. So stay here.
I have to say, very much so, this is an Instagram account to follow. There's some laughs here.
Hilarious.
That's
it. That's our show. 0042 in the books.
In the books. Alan, good job.
Thank you. Good job. I would shake your hand, but we're not doing that anymore. Nope. No, that's I'll
When's the
bow
last
to
time
you.
you shook someone's hand? March?
Probably January or February. By like the end of February, I was like, yeah, I'm not touching anyone. This is a disaster.
Because you just really hate people.
Also true. Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. It's okay. No one wants to shake your hand either, Alan.
Good. I got enough to do in my hands.
That got really mean really fast.
I got kind of exciting really quickly.
Okay, bye everybody.
Ciao.
Bye. You're not saying bye to them, Alan.
I think we're done here.